Hey everyone, this is my Schoology course that I'm going to tell you a little bit more about today. As you first see on the main page, I have a little bit about myself. I have some general information. I have C3 before me, which is what I use in my class to promote collaboration between students and to help them try and problem solve before they bother me when I'm working in a small group. So this was the discussion board that we had posted in which they can ask questions to each other. They can also go up to 3 other people before they bother me to help fix their technology problem. In resources, there's a list of resources that can help them along the way. Schoology help, I put in some videos and some things that will help them troubleshoot on their own. And then getting started was where you needed to see some of the things. It was the preview document, it was my introduction activity, and my scope and sequence for my Unit 4. Now, one thing I will say is that I teach first grade. So if I were using this online digital unit, I would not have this much available to the students. Typically, when I use Schoology with my first grade, the less they see, the better. So I would probably, after introducing the online environment, I would actually unpublish a lot of these things just so that they wouldn't be clicking around all crazily. Here is my Unit 4 that I'm going to walk you through. So once again, this would probably be the only thing open to my students when I was ready to actually have them complete the unit. I broke my unit down into 3 major sections, being phonics, reading skills, and writing. That's how my units are broken down for my district. So it just made sense for me to do those 3 separate lessons. Then at the bottom, you'll see I also have a Unit 4 resources, and that's also where my references are cited. So I will explain a little bit about my phonics section. First and foremost, I have a pre-assessment for long vowels. They will go through and they will name the picture by picking the word that matches it. I teach my student about the crumbles up at the top, so whenever they want to get back to something, I teach them how to navigate through the crumbles. Going back through, this would be my module that has the student completion rules. So the first thing they would have to do is go to the Silent E Edpuzzle. They watch it. Edpuzzle is great because it's easily embedded into Schoology. And then as you see these question marks, it stops along the way and they have to answer a question before it can go on. Then they would go on to a Quizlet where there are flashcards that they have to see the word and then understand a word with a picture and then move through those as well. The next part that they would have to complete would be sentence writing. They would have to make a discussion post down here at the bottom. Basically what I want them to do, these are the words that they learned from the Quizlet, and I would expect them to then go in and use these words within the sentences. There's also a sentence checklist down here. This sentence checklist is something they are familiar with in writing that we have been working on. And the last part would be this Nearpod. The thing I like about Nearpod is you can do it as a live lesson or a self-paced lesson. In this particular situation, I did it as a self-paced. The other thing I like about easily embedding it into Schoology is they can complete it here, or they could click this button and it can go out to the Nearpod. All they would have to do is type their name in, and then they get to begin their assessment on long vowels. So this, in a way, is very similar to my pre-assessment, but it's just another avenue I can take them into and get comfortable with Nearpod, and I'm a big fan of Nearpod. Once they go through the long vowel module, I have a PowerPoint. Basically what I did here was I just took a smart notebook and I converted it to PowerPoint. So they would look through this. Then they would have a review discussion at the end. So the reasons I really want them to do all this work with long vowels, magic E words, is I want them to become better readers, but I also want them to reflect on how learning this phonics rule really helps them do that. In my reading skill unit, you will see a big thing that we're working on is compare and contrast. My goal setting assignment is here. So they would click on the KWL chart using the Google Assignment app. They already have their own copies, so I don't have to worry about anybody working off of my main document. I want them to type in what they already know about compare and contrast and what they want to know. Obviously, when I learned will then be completed towards the end. In my compare and contrast explanation, I did a screencast introducing compare and contrast terms with a Google slide presentation. And then I also screencasted the next assignment that they would be working on, which happens to be a compare and contrast assignment between the Great Kapok tree and the Lorax. So they would watch the read alouds and then they would work in a Venn diagram, which is also a Google drawing. I do a lot with Google drawings because I feel as though it allows for them to get comfortable with, once again, another Web 2.0 tool. And we all love Google because, of course, the back button, if they make mistakes, they know how to fix it. I also gave them another assignment with the 3 little pigs. This time I was introducing the idea of submitting a picture into Schoology. So they actually listen to the read aloud, and then we read a story of the 3 little pigs, a different version in class. They will complete this graphic organizer, but instead of them doing it online, I just wanted them to take a picture, and then I wanted them to submit it through the assignment feature. This is a nice way to introduce to them how to do pictures on the computer, but also how to submit through Schoology. Through many of my activities, I really try to introduce them to the foundations of Schoology because my school is very heavily into Schoology. I want to make sure they know how to use it before they go on to other grades. My main assessment is the compare and contrast assessment. This is where I had a variety of different questions. Sometimes there were pictures involved. Sometimes there were short answers. Sometimes I included text that they had to read and then answer a question. So I tried to use a variety of question types. And then the last thing was the compare and contrast reflection. So basically it's that KWL chart again. I would make sure they understand that they do not have to get another assignment. They can go out to Google and they can use the one that they already have started. However, I did post the KWL chart in case they did not understand that. Okay, the last section is the writing section. So here's where I also have my collaborative group assignment. First thing I wanted them to understand was the narrative writing introduction. So I have a short little video. The other thing I thought was cool and I decided to do was actually crowdsource using Google Slides. So when they click here, you'll see that it is one Google slide presentation that they're all working on. However, they all have their own slide. So I teach them how they are only responsible to write on their slide. They're not allowed to go onto other slides. I think this is a really good idea to brainstorm their personal narratives because then everybody can see what each other is doing. And then they don't necessarily all have the same idea because they can see, oh, so-and-so is writing about the time they went to the beach. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the time I went to a carnival. So I like the idea of crowdsourcing using Google Slides. I've done it in the past. After that, they're going to go on to begin their graphic organizer to develop their own personal narrative. So you'll see they have a characters, a setting, a story, problem, map. And once again, they all are going to have a copy of it. I do have directions over here, and I did get this obviously from someone else. So I did put their information here. Google Drawings have a lot of templates already made, so you don't have to create them from scratch, which I really like. After they make their own graphic organizer and they start to develop their rough draft, I wanted them to get introduced to Storyboard That because I thought it was a really good idea to have them go out to Storyboard That and put pictures and images with their story. So here's a little screencast that I made to show them Storyboard That, and then once they're ready to go on, they will actually get to make it on their own. The cool thing about Storyboard That is it is free, and then what I would do is teach them how to take a screenshot at the end. My collaborative group project, what I decided to do was each group was going to have a Google slide presentation. So after they make their own personal narrative, they will then make their own, they will then use a group presentation link to create a beginning, middle, and end. Each person is using a separate part of the organizer. The last thing I wanted to show you in my writing was some extra resources, extra practice. And then the final one was my Unit 4 resources and citations. Thanks.